Neil, great to have you with us today. Um, One topic that's high on many people's agendas in the travel sector is just how tough the past 12 months has been due to COVID. From a financial services point of view, what have you seen in the travel sector, given how tough it's been over the last 12 months?
Well, people use the word unprecedented all the time, but I've never seen anything like this. Travel, which was a sector in Britain where practically every bank had an interest in supporting the clients. If we were putting out a request for proposal, we were having every bank, every Tom, Dick, and Harry bidding for the business. And suddenly we've got a position now where, through no fault of their own, let's be clear, revenues are down, cash and liquidity is at a premium, and the banks are starting to either ask them to find another bank, in the worst cases, sometimes only giving them 30 days. And these are long-standing clients, some of them very, very large brands, James, that we're seeing, very important high street brands, very well-known brands, being asked to find a new bank or come up with sometimes very substantial amounts of cash collateral very quickly. I'm talking about you need to put £6 million in today in order for us to continue to provide this service. We've seen 60-day notices, 90-day notices. We've seen settlement terms pushed out from the normal sort of 1 or 2 days to 180 days. I mean, just what we're seeing is a ridiculous overreaction. I know there needs to be a reaction, but I think an overreaction to the sector. And I think there is a danger that some of the banks, the big banks, have perhaps looked at the sector, maybe felt that they were overexposed, real concerns and doubts and uncertainty about what COVID is going to mean, how long it's going to go on. And the safest thing, rather than try and put a nuance in the messages, is to just say, right, no more new business in this sector. Try and de-risk your portfolios, find as many opportunities to exit the clients. And it's just, I feel sorry for some of these businesses, because they're such good fundamental businesses hit by an act of God completely outside of their control, and they will come back unless the banks don't support them. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy if you think about it. If the banks sort of withdraw their support, they give out umbrellas when it's sunny and then pull the umbrellas back when it's raining. Well, now it's absolutely pouring. If the umbrellas are taken away, I think it could be a self-fulfilling prophecy, and some of these companies will go under. We've already seen that already, and that would be a massive shame.
Yeah, it would be devastating for many people's lives. I mean, what would you say if you were one of these travel companies? What would you say in the moment about advice to give them, in the sense of the rains hammering down, the umbrellas being taken away? What are some practical steps that some of these companies could take?
Yeah, I think if they're completely cash rich, and I don't know of many travel companies that are sat on piles of cash at the moment, so that's a minority. Assuming therefore cash is starting to burn, income isn't coming in, and especially if they're getting any indications that the bank wants to speak to them, the bank wants to see some more MI, the bank is starting to send out any signals, or in fact if they've received one of these letters giving them, quite unreasonable demands with very short periods of time, they've got to take action. Hunkering down might seem like the natural thing to do, but if you hunker down and then ultimately the bank withdraws all support, and you haven't got any income coming in, then new banks are going to find it very, very hard to love you. So my suggestion is, and this is what we're recommending to all the travel companies currently reaching out to us for support, they've done the right thing. Come and ask for help, ask for independent support. That's what we're here for. We can offer them suggestions and advice. We can talk to them about those banks that still have an appetite. We can talk to them about those banks that have actually exhausted their appetite. We can talk to them about those banks that are absolutely strategically exiting this sector, and therefore what are the mitigating factors that they can take. Because you mustn't assume that every single bank is doing exactly the same thing. That's not the case. There are banks, not necessarily all in the UK, there are banks all over the world that perhaps maybe been trying to grow their travel book in Britain, seen as a really, really good market for them to operate in, and would love to have even a portion of the risk, be part of a panel supporting some of these great brands. Well, we have access to all of those companies all over the world. And I'm telling you that there's well over 400 companies offering acquiring services just in Europe alone. And yet, if you asked a typical travel CFO or treasurer, can you name 10? I think they probably struggle beyond. Well, if they could hit 10, they certainly wouldn't be looking at some of the ones that we are aware of. I'm not saying that means you have to go for obscure acquirers, James, just to be really clear on this. But what I am saying is you need to have an open mind. The other things I say is you don't just need to look at traditional means of accepting payments. So it may be that your card acquiring bank is saying, right, because of the Visa and MasterCard exposure, then we need to do blah, 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 blah. But maybe there are other payment vehicles. There's other payment types that you could actually take. There's a number of fintechs offering different services for direct payments from the current account of the client directly into your current account as the travel company, some specializing in travel. There's the likes of PayPal, an alternative payment method. Sorry, James.
No, I was going to say there's a lot of expertise I can see that you've got in this space. Just from your point of view, given the time pressures many face, how feasible is it for people to complete these changes in a relatively quick period of time? Is that something they can do, or are there ways to shortcut that?
Yeah, if you are just having different conversations with your existing bank, obviously that the infrastructure is all set up, that can be done fairly quickly. Maybe it's just providing different reassurances, or maybe some slightly different terms. Maybe you may be willing to pay a little bit more for the service to avoid having to have additional cash collateral requirements or deferred settlements. So there may be something very quick and easy you can do with your existing bank with support and with sort of advice and help. But it may not be too painful if you do need to either add another bank, because that's something that a number of the banks are saying. They're saying we need to de-risk. De-risk doesn't mean altogether get rid of every single one of these clients. For some, it might mean just have one or two additional banks sitting alongside the existing bank or banks. So each one, rather than one taking 100%, it might be that each you have 10 of them taking 10%. So then adding additional acquirers into the panel might be the solution. So that could be quite straightforward, because it's adding into your existing infrastructure. The other thing to do is to say, well, actually, fundamentally, we've got a tied bank processing through a tied gateway, and they're saying, we can't support you. In that case, you might actually have to take the plumbing itself out, the platform, the tech that gives you access to the banks. And in that case, I wouldn't recommend taking a tied gateway, because by definition, then you're in the hands of that gateway, that bank, and if you're unhappy with either, well, it's a real pain to decouple. I'd far more strongly recommend we'll take an independent gateway with access to the whole global acquiring plethora around the world, and have some control back to yourself, rather than be at the sort of the wishes of the bank.
Yeah, and Neil, it's been really great talking to you. I'm sure many in the travel sector will be reassured that there is support out there. And to your image, the umbrella being taken away when it's pouring is one thing, but there will always be people out there to hand it back again with support and expertise. So thank you, Neil.
Great, no problem. Cheers. Cheers, James.